Hey everybody. So I started reading the book of Jasher after I saw it was mentioned a couple times in the Bible. It's first mentioned by Joshua. He refers to as written in the book of Jasher. So I got the book. It's super good. And everyone needs to know who Nimrod is because Nimrod changed history as we know it. I believe Nimrod is why we have so many Hindu gods. They come from this book. You'll have this great understanding of giants. Book of Enoch's even better to explain giants, evil spirits, all that. Okay, so Noah gets off the ship. He lands in the city called Eight, still there to this day, still called that by that name. And he has sons. He has Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham has Cush. And Cush gets cursed by Noah. You ever wonder why? Likely because he carried on the Nephilim's genealogy, probably through Ham and his wife. And when he looked at Cush, likely, Noah was like, oh, great, here we go again. Here we go. So anyways, after Cush had lots of kids, he had a son named Nimrod. And he had him when he was old. And so I'm just going to read right out of the book. It says, and Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days. And in his old age, she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod. At that time, the sons of men began to rebel and transgress against God. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. And the garments of skin, which are the garments the Lord made Adam and Eve, they were put in the ark, this book explains, when the flood happened. And Ham stole them, gave them to Cush, and then Cush gave them to Nimrod. And when he did this, the Lord made him very strong. He made him mighty. And okay, so there's so much I could tell you about Nimrod that I feel like you need to know, but you're going to have to read the book to find it all out. Because I just want to talk about Babel. And if I don't read about the Babel, then I'm going to babble. So, okay, so we got to talk about Nimrod briefly. This guy, like I said just prior, he puts on these underpants. He gets really, really strong. He starts to get all this land and power, and he transgresses against God, which means he starts worshiping idols, which God has talked about since the beginning of time. You cannot expect an idol, which is something made of wood or stone, or with man's hands, with eyes that cannot see, ears that cannot hear, and mouth that cannot speak. And so it really bugs God when he has created us to worship him, and we go and make things and worship those and pray to him and bow to him and stuff. It bugs God for good reason. Anyways, I'm off track again. I'm babbling. So Nimrod, he's Esau. When he came and sold his birthright, he's so hungry, he had killed Nimrod that day. I think that's a cool fact. That's also in this book. And the biggest thing I want to put out here is, if you know anything, because I'm a yoga teacher, a Christian yoga teacher, I believe in Jesus. I don't worship Hindu gods, but a lot of people do. And I find it interesting because I feel you find out who they are in this book. All right, so they're starting to make Babel. It's a transgression. And why would it be a transgression to God to build a building that's high up to heaven? And you got to really think about this, because the Twin Towers were big buildings, but God didn't care about them, right? But Babel, he did. And so let's read possibly why. Okay, so it says, and the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. And they were building against the Lord, the God of heaven, and they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend to heaven. All these people and families divided themselves into three parts. The first said, we will ascend to heaven and fight against him. The second said, we will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, we will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building. And he lets them build, and he lets them build. I think it took, I'd have to Google it to make sure because I don't want to lie, but it took years and years to build this city. And it says it in this book, so maybe I can find it before I finish this video. Anyways, when they built the city and the tower, the height of the mortar and the bricks did not reach the builder in their ascent to it until those who went up completed a year. So it took 1 year to take one brick up there to the top of it. So they must have been building the sucker for a while. And after they reached the builders and gave them mortar and the bricks, this was done every day. So every day someone's finally making it to the top. Someone's at the bottom and they're just doing this every day. And behold, these that ascended and the others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would even look at him. And the Lord knew their thoughts. And it came to pass, when they were building, they cast the arrows towards heaven. And all the arrows fell upon them, filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, surely we have slain all those who are in heaven. For this was from the Lord, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground. And they built the tower in the city, and they did this thing daily. Many days and years were elapsed. And God said to 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near him, saying, come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his other. And they did so unto them. That's why we have different languages. And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from his hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, and he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. Then the Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works. So this is where I believe Hinduism comes in. All right, you ready for it? And those who said, we will ascend to heaven and serve our God, became like apes and elephants. Interesting. Ganesh. Hanuman. Oh, they're still worshipped to this day. Yeah, very interesting. I've always thought, and then I read this and I was like, oh. And those who said, we will smite heaven with arrows, the Lord killed them, one man through the hand of his neighbor. And the 3rd division of those who said, we will ascend into heaven and fight against him, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. I don't know why I do that, because now they're everywhere. And those who were left among them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. They ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babel, for there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. And as to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof. And a fire also descended from heaven and burned another third. And the other third is left to this day. And it is of that part which is aloft, and its circumference is a 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. I find that just absolutely fascinating. So I wanted to share. All right, bye. One more really, really cool thing, a fact about Nimrod is all the holidays that we celebrate to this day in America are Nimrod's holidays, right? Easter, look it up. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just telling you what I've learned. 25th of December, Christmas, that's not Jesus's birthday. That's Nimrod's birthday. So he's an interesting character to look into. Want to deposit and read it? You can, but I'm going to turn around and read it.